Most people believe success arrives like a lightning strike. One big break, one lucky moment, one dramatic decision that suddenly changes everything. Jeff Olson opens The Slight Edge by quietly dismantling this illusion, and he does it so convincingly that once you see the truth, you can never unsee it again. He asks you to imagine two paths that look almost identical at the start. On one path, a person makes small positive choices every day. Choices so simple they seem insignificant. On the other path, a person makes small negative choices or simply does nothing at all. At first, both lives look exactly the same. The real shock comes much later when those nearly invisible choices compound and create radically different outcomes. That invisible force, Olson explains, is the slight edge, and it is always working whether you notice it or not. The book unfolds like a conversation with a mentor who has lived long enough to understand what most people never figure out. Olson begins by explaining that the slight edge is not a technique, a hack, or a shortcut. It is a way of understanding how life truly works. Success and failure are not sudden events. They are the predictable results of daily habits repeated over time. The problem is that the actions that lead to success are usually easy to do, and just as easy not to do. Drinking a glass of water, reading 10 pages, making one phone call, choosing a healthier meal, going for a short walk. None of these feel powerful in the moment. Skipping them doesn't feel harmful either. And that is precisely why people underestimate them. Olson introduces the idea that life operates on a curve rather than a straight line. Early on, effort appears to produce little or no reward. You work, you try, you improve slightly, but nothing dramatic happens. This is where most people quit, convinced that their efforts don't matter. What they fail to realize is that results are delayed, not denied. The curve bends slowly at first, almost invisibly, but once momentum builds, the same actions that once seemed pointless suddenly produce massive results. This explains why people often say, "You're so lucky," or "You're an overnight success," when in reality, the success has been years in the making. As the book progresses, Olson introduces the idea of two powerful forces constantly shaping our lives: success compounding and failure compounding. Both are driven by the same mechanism: daily choices. Success compounding works quietly. A small improvement today leads to a slightly better tomorrow, which leads to a stronger next month, and eventually an extraordinary life. Failure compounding is just as real, but far more deceptive. Missing a workout doesn't make you unhealthy. Skipping one conversation doesn't ruin your career. But repeated over months and years, these tiny decisions slowly erode potential until one day you look back and wonder how things went so wrong. One of the most eye-opening moments in the book is when Olson explains that most people are not actively failing. They are drifting. Drifting feels safe. It feels comfortable. You're not making bad decisions, you're just not making good ones either. And drifting is far more dangerous than outright failure because it gives the illusion of stability. You're busy, you're occupied, you're surviving, but you're not intentionally building anything. The slight edge demands intentionality. It asks you to decide, consciously and repeatedly, to do the small things that align with the life you want, even when no one is watching and no immediate reward is visible. Olson then shifts the conversation toward mindset and personal responsibility. He emphasizes that external circumstances rarely determine long-term outcomes. Two people can face the same challenges, come from similar backgrounds, and have access to the same opportunities, yet end up in completely different places. The difference lies in how they respond consistently over time. The slight edge is always neutral. It works just as effectively for bad habits as it does for good ones. Life doesn't judge your choices, it simply compounds them. The book also explores the idea of happiness and fulfillment, making it clear that success without joy is not true success. Olson argues that the slight edge applies not only to wealth and career, but also to relationships, health, confidence, and peace of mind. A kind word repeated daily strengthens relationships. A few minutes of reflection each day builds emotional resilience. Small acts of gratitude, practiced consistently, rewire the brain toward optimism. These practices don't feel revolutionary, yet they slowly transform the quality of life in profound ways. One of the most practical sections of the book focuses on habits. Olson doesn't treat habits as rigid routines, but as identity-shaping behaviors. What you do daily is a vote for the person you are becoming. Each small action reinforces a self-image, and over time, that identity becomes your reality. When you see yourself as someone who keeps promises to themselves, discipline becomes natural. When you see yourself as someone who drifts, inconsistency becomes your default. The slight edge works by shaping identity first and results second. Olson also tackles the myth of motivation. He explains that waiting to feel motivated is a trap because motivation is unreliable. Discipline, on the other hand, is built through small acts of consistency. Doing the right thing when you don't feel like it strengthens the internal muscle that separates achievers from dreamers. The book makes it clear that successful people are not superhuman. They simply understand that feelings are temporary, but habits are permanent. As the narrative deepens, Olson highlights the importance of environment and influence. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, and the conversations you engage in all subtly shape your trajectory. The slight edge doesn't require cutting off the world. It requires curating it, listening to uplifting material, surrounding yourself with growth-oriented thinkers, and limiting negative inputs can quietly elevate your standards without force or struggle. One of the most empowering ideas in the book is the realization that time is either your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. When aligned with positive habits, time multiplies progress. When paired with neglect, time magnifies regret. Olson emphasizes that you don't need to overhaul your life overnight. In fact, trying to do so often backfires. The real power lies in choosing one or two small disciplines and committing to them long enough for the curve to bend. Toward the later chapters, Olson addresses the fear of starting small. Many people avoid small actions because they feel beneath their ambitions. They want dramatic change, instant breakthroughs, visible wins. The slight edge asks you to humble yourself enough to trust the process.